Welcome to the New York State Justice Center's Could This Happen in Your Program podcast, where we find collaborative solutions for protecting New York's most vulnerable populations. Each episode, we will delve into case scenarios, uncovering proven tactics to combat systemic abuse. Listeners can expect to hear from Justice Center staff, agency providers, individuals with lived experience, and more as we explore how we can work together to build a safer New York. All right, so we can get right into our first conversation with Ms. Davin Robinson. Thank you for joining us today. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, your role at the Justice Center, and your history?
Sure.
Your whole history.
Yeah. So it's an hour-long show. That's great. I am Davin Robinson. I began my career in the last century. I worked for the state of Illinois, their Department of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse. And
Last
then
century.
it was the last century. And then moved from there to New York City. I worked with the budget office and with the Health and Hospitals Corporation, then moved up to Albany and started walking around the halls of the Capitol, advocating for improved mental health policy for children and for people in New York State prisons. And that led me to this little agency called the Commission on Quality of Care, and Advocacy for Persons with Disabilities. When I worked at HHC and the budget office, I quickly learned the best way to get more resources for programs was to talk about the deficits that a program had and how that investment could pay off. And CQC was the only independent place that was really looking critically at service providers. So I wanted to join in on that. And so I went over to CQC in 2007, and then we became the Justice Center in 2013.
Preventing abuse and neglect is everyone's main goal, as we know. How essential are tools like the Staff Exclusion List and our criminal background check process in mitigating abuse and neglect before it happens? And before you start, if you could explain for our listeners what the Staff Exclusion List is and any requirements that providers must go through from a pre-employment check process standpoint.
Certainly. And I will just say at the beginning, I think these are two very important tools. And the Staff Exclusion List, which exists only in New York State, is probably one of the most important tools that we have at our fingertips. So the Staff Exclusion List was created when the Justice Center was created, and it's meant to bar certain people who've committed serious acts of abuse and neglect from being able to work in the human service sector, again, working with vulnerable populations. We're not saying that they can't work anywhere. We're just saying that it's a vulnerable population, and you've shown you either seriously physically abuse somebody with intent to harm them or sexually abuse them, you do not belong in this business. And so a provider agency, that when they're about to hire somebody, they contact the Justice Center. This list is not public, but they contact and they ask if their candidate is on the Staff Exclusion List. And if they are barred from hiring that person. So right from the get-go, that keeps New York safer, keeps those people out. And then the criminal background check also, there's, we want to make sure that the people who are coming into these provider agencies can work safely with vulnerable populations. And so that is also a very helpful tool. But I want to say, most people who work in the service system are good-hearted people. They come to work for the right reason. They're professionals. They care about the people that they are serving. They want them to live productive lives in the community. And we need to protect that workforce as well. And the criminal background check and Staff Exclusion List helps with that as well.
Excellent. So what are some of the common challenges providers encounter in their efforts to prevent abuse and neglect? You work with providers very often in your role, so we'd love to hear from you. What are some of the challenges you're seeing on a daily basis?
Staffing is the most important resource for all of these providers. And there is not enough staffing available right now, and retention is really not very good at many provider agencies. And if you don't have sufficient staffing, you have a very difficult time doing training, because every time you're training somebody, you're pulling them off services, and you've created another staffing shortage. And then the other big contributor, again with staffing, because it's our most important resource, is sometimes staff will not follow procedures. They'll take shortcuts. It becomes sort of ingrained, and it's all well and good to sleep at night until the one night where someone chokes. and you were supposed to be up that night. So following agency policies and procedures is really important. And when an agency has policies and procedures and staff follow them and an incident still occurs, then the Justice Center is able to work with the agency and say, this was a systemic failure. This was not the staff's fault. And so you need to develop a corrective action plan and take steps to better protect the people you serve and the staff that are working very hard for you.
And I think even in addition to staff shortage, I think that also includes staff turnover, because then providers are constantly retraining, right?
Yes.
They're constantly in the effort
Yes.
of training new staff and managing those different
Right.
levels of experience.
And getting to know the people that you serve, that are living in the programs, many of them. And so people have all sorts of, some people have different triggers, things that they really like to do. And it's really hard to bring new staff up to speed quickly on that.
So we've talked a little bit about the challenges. What resources does the Justice Center offer to help providers and arm them with the tools needed to prevent abuse and neglect?
Oh, great question. We have so many resources that are free and available on our website that I hope everyone goes to check out. But the first
It was a give me question.
It's a great website. It's so well organized. So the first one is the Code of Conduct, which was also created when the Justice Center was created. And it's a 1.5-page document that anybody who's providing care to people in the service settings under the Justice Center, they must sign this Code of Conduct. And when you sign it, you're pledging to treat people with dignity and respect, follow your agency's policies and procedures, and also report incidents of abuse and neglect. And we don't want that to be a read and sign, because we think if you're really following the tenets of the Code of Conduct, you're less likely to be involved in an incident of abuse and neglect. So we have online, you can take a simple test that goes through all the tenets. It's scenario based, and it brings the Code of Conduct to life. We also provide Code of Conduct trainer sessions for provider agencies so they can bring the Code of Conduct to life in their agency. We also have agency self-assessments on our website that any agency, and we try to tailor them to the different, multi-faceted system that we have. So, and you can pick and choose, but it allows an agency to take a critical look, top to bottom, of their program and see where they might be vulnerable for incidents of abuse and neglect, and then take action. We have all sorts of online training in addition to the Code of Conduct. We maintaining professional boundaries is a very popular training that we have, and we can do that live and in person as well. And then finally, we have our spotlights on prevention, which we develop these based on common cases that we're seeing and common things that are leading to incidents of abuse and neglect. And so these spotlights have all sorts of resources available for providers, some training and some training tips and some sample policies, procedures, forms, all sorts of things, and they're all free on the website.
Yes, we can't tout the website enough here at Communications.
It's where you find all the good stuff.
So speaking of, the title of this podcast is Could This Happen in Your Program? And that title is derived from a training tool that is featured in many of those toolkits, also in our presentations. And it started right even before the start of the Justice Center. So can you give us a little background on the history of Could This Happen in Your Program?
Sure, great question. Yes, we have all of our toolkits actually have a Could This Happen section. And they are, again, there's scenarios based on some of the common themes that we see in things that lead up to incidents of abuse and neglect. And so it's a brief summary of the situation, and there are some points down below, sort of that teachers aid to sort of here's where things broke down. But we encourage those can just be ripped out, and maybe during a treatment team meeting, take 10 or 15 minutes to think about a situation that might happen in your program, and are you aware of the nursing plans? Do you have a good way of communicating if you're passing off supervision, for example? And Could This Happen actually was started by the Commission on Quality of Care and Advocacy for Persons with Disabilities. And it was very popular when the Justice Center started and we developed our spotlights on prevention. We included these scenarios with these points, and providers still would say, but wait, could this happen? I miss it. And so we figured we had a good brand. We keep on going with it.
Well, yes, and now we've turned it into a podcast. So we're taking the scenarios and we're going to address them on each episode, and work with different levels of the agency to talk through how we process a case. Also, we are going to have provider guests, guests with lived experiences, as we said in the introduction. So it's going to be a really great podcast. And then finally, we just released a Could This Happen in Your Program toolkit, which includes a variety. It's like 47 pages. It's huge.
It's the comprehensive encyclopedia of things that could go wrong in your program.
But an excellent training tool. So can you
Yes,
give us a little bit of a background on that?
Sure. We worked with our state agency partners, and we wanted to just provide a really comprehensive, rich resource for providers to encourage providers to do those things during the treatment team meetings, and just brush up on having your abuse prevention mindset going all the time. So we have all sorts of scenarios that could apply anywhere that people can use. And like I said, they're short and it's easy to just, do them every once in a while. So yeah, we're excited about it.
Yep, and you can find a link to that toolkit in the notes on this podcast and also on our website. So I think that concludes our time. Thank you so much, Davin, for joining us today. And
Thank you.
We look forward to the next time we can have you. Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us. As I mentioned earlier, we have our acting executive director, Maria Lisi-Murray, here with us for the second part of our program today. Maria, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Well, I think what might be helpful for our listeners, if you could give us a brief background on your work experience and what you do here at the Justice Center.
Sure, absolutely. So, as many people know, I started my professional career as a City of Binghamton police officer. I worked on patrol for approximately 3 years and then became a Special Investigations Unit investigator for my last 4 years with the department. I went on to law school and became a trial lawyer. I served as a partner in a City of Binghamton law firm for about 15 years and then moved on to the New York State Attorney General's office, where I continued my work as a litigation attorney. I then moved into a chief risk officer role at New York State DMV, where I oversaw internal controls, internal audit, our litigation attorneys, and the new risk unit with cybersecurity, contained that, therein. And that led me to take a job at the Justice Center, again, overseeing internal controls, internal audit, our internal appeal attorney unit, and setting up the new quality assurance unit within the agency. Did that for about 7 months and then was elevated to my current role as acting executive director. And I've been in that role for just over a year.
Wow, you've had like 4 careers.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you're really tailor-made for the Justice Center and all the work. You have the law enforcement background, the legal experience, and you also have some what sounds like customer success experience and trying to work out quality concerns and efficiencies and processes. So it sounds like you're in the right role.
Thank you. Yes, I it's sort of, wonder to myself every day, how can I use this past experience in order to help the agency move forward? And it's just really been enjoyable to take the culmination of all these different things I've done and use every piece of it, to benefit the Justice Center and the people we protect.
So under your leadership, the Justice Center has increasingly focused on abuse prevention efforts. We're starting this podcast to focus on that. We've increased our materials for providers. What motivated you to emphasize this piece of the Justice Center's work that has largely been focused on investigations in the past? What has caused you to even that playing field?
Sure. Well, while my history and my professional career really has focused around investigations and investigative practices, I see a lot of value in prevention. If you could prevent abuse and neglect, give our support staff, who are doing the hands-on work every day, the tools, the resources that they need, the supports that they need. Why wouldn't we do that? Prevention, I think, is absolutely the strongest role that the agency can play in terms of ensuring that abuse and neglect, never occurs.
Absolutely. I think we can all certainly agree about that. As acting executive director along those lines, you created the Justice Center's first responder and law enforcement training program. So this is an excellent training program that launched later last year. Can you elaborate on that? What motivated you to launch this program for that audience?
Yes, absolutely. So, as I've said, I have law enforcement, patrol officer, and investigative experience. One of the things that has come to my mind, as I've stepped into this role, is the fact that law enforcement officers, EMS, fire, any first responder who's responding to a call, often only has the information from the complainant. And has, and it's coming up and having to make life and death decisions very, very quickly. Oftentimes they don't realize, the type of facility that they're responding to, or what to expect when they get there, or even how to approach someone who really requires de-escalation, who requires a mindful approach in order to ensure respectful communication and a successful, positive outcome.
Excellent. Along the lines of creating a culture of prevention, I think there's no better example than that, stopping the negative outcomes before they even start. And I think we can't turn on the news these days without seeing some sort of negative interaction between law enforcement or first responders and individuals with disabilities. So I think it's great that we've launched this program to really highlight and affect change.
Absolutely. We've trained over 200 individuals at this point. I think there's a real appetite for this sort of training. You don't go into, law enforcement or become a first responder to do harm. You go in to help people. So I think there's a real niche for this agency to highlight our expertise and ensure better outcomes.
Excellent. So looking ahead, what message would you like to convey to providers and the direct care workforce when interacting with the Justice Center? It's been a relationship that we've really worked to cultivate over the years. Curious what your goal is here.
Well, I think support staff, providers, they need to understand that we are a support for them. We want to provide them the tools, access to, the best practices. Our dual mission here is to also support our direct care workforce. And I take that very seriously. Again, I believe prevention, giving them the support they need, and offering the Justice Center as a resource, on a proactive basis, not just a reactive investigative agency. I think that that's going to make a big difference and hopefully improves the care for the folks that we serve.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Ms. Lisi-Murray. It's been a joy having you here today. For listeners, we've been speaking with Marie Lisi-Murray, Acting Executive Director of the New York State Justice Center, and this is the Could This Happen in Your Program podcast. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.